Good morning, Summit Racing customers. Welcome to our Monday Facebook Live. We changed it up a little bit this week because we are fortunate to have a very, very special guest with us today. So Scott Hamel fits in really well to a theme that we've had over a number of interviews surrounding great American success stories. We've had folks in the past like Jay Leno, Don Garlitz, Larry Nance, David Freiberger, Frank Hawley, Brian Loans, Greg Anderson, Dallas Glenn, a whole ton of interesting people. And Scott is going to be an incredibly great interview today. Scott is truly an amazing person. He lives in Albany, New York. And when he was a teenager, he was involved in a horrific car accident during the winter while en route to school that was due to terrible winter driving conditions. As a result of this accident, Scott was paralyzed from the waist down. After he was paralyzed, Scott decided to become a drag racer. Scott had hand controls fitted into his car, proceeded to become a regular at events at their home track, Lebanon Valley. He kept improving the cars and upgrading over the years, eventually racing a top Sportsman Corvette, with his best pass being a 679 at 203. To my knowledge, Scott is the fastest paraplegic drag racer ever. Aside from his amazing drag racing accomplishments, Scott also has taken time to talk to handicapped youth to let them know what they can do with their lives and to not let any setbacks get in their way. Scott also teaches automotive tech classes at Bosse's Vocational School in Albany, New York. Scott, we are very appreciative of you being a longtime customer and also an inspiration to others who may encounter challenges in their lives. Scott is a great reminder. Whenever you think something is just too hard to do, keep in mind that if you put your mind to it, there are truly no barriers that you cannot overcome. So, Scott, it's good seeing you. Haven't seen you in a bit, but it's awesome to see you today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Al. Hey, after the intro, case closed. We're done. That's good.
You drop the mic, walk off stage.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I'm doing very well. Doing very well. You know, can't complain a bit. So it's great to see you. I'm very, very flattered that you guys thought of me. To be on this today. Just a regular guy doing regular stuff. And when you contacted me about this, and through our relationship with Summit, just very flattered to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Ironically, so I'll rewind a little bit and talk a little bit of history with Scott and his brother, Mark. So actually, I got to know Scott through his brother, Mark. Mark and I worked together at Mr. Gasket. Mark was our DFI installer program sales manager. So I was the product manager that dealt with all the product side of the stuff. Mark and I became good friends working together. And always talked about his brother Scott, and I saw the picture of the car on his wall in the office one day. And you two he had a Vega he raced at the time. You had the Corvette. And back then, if I remember right, Scott, I think it was like a super gas car, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, we originally when we built that car, it was a tube frame S&W car that wasn't done, and I picked it up. And we were bracket racing at Lebanon Valley. We were pretty active there. Mark had taken over my Chevelle, and I was looking for another car, and we bought that. We ran it in NHRA Super Gas. Ended up running high eights with it. I ran an 860 with it, and but we bracket raced, Mark and I together, him in the Vega and me with this 66 Corvette for the better part in Super Pro there of 10 to 15 years, and we did pretty well. Mark, as you know, Mark was an exceptional driver and multiple track championships. And we were lucky. We ran a two-car team, which was an advantage. And we did, both of us had different avenues of what we were satisfied with. Mark was Mr. Consistency. He was a good driver, bracket driver, and he was Mr. Consistency. He wanted the car to do the same thing all the time. Whereas I was a little bit more performance dedicated, I guess, or after it would almost made me happier to run a big number, make the car faster than it would to, go a whole bunch of rounds at a bracket race. So it turned out that when we were running as a team, a lot of times, if I had a new idea, I would try it on my car first before we would put it in Mark's car. And, if it worked for me, then we'd put it in his car. If it didn't, I was kind of like the experimental guy, which I didn't mind a bit. I actually liked it. And so we ran as a team. We did pretty well. And, it grew from a point where, the first car I raced was my mom's Oldsmobile when I was 18 to, the top Sportsman car there that you see that I ended up retiring, after I got done with my career.
So very GM focused is what we're picking up here.
Justin, I grew up in a Ford family, but when I was a kid, the little village in Postonkill, New York, I grew up in, I was muscle car era, and everybody in that town, the guys that were our landlords, they were all Mopar guys. There was just a lot of, it was just muscle car time. I was 6, 7 years old, and we got big block hot rods and Hemi Cudas and everything running around town, and I was just in love with the stuff. The Chevrolet thing, I guess at the time, I liked the Camaro, the shells, and big block Chevy stuff. And at that time, I seemed to grab. You could make good power with them, and so that's the way I went. I was never actually really a Corvette guy. I jumped into the Corvette thing when I went to. I bought a set of heads. A couple of guys that had supported me for, my whole career. One of the guys was Bud Abatello with ABS Chassis, and I bought a set of heads from him, and he had that Corvette, that 66 that I ended up racing in the back of his shop uncompleted, and I bought that from him. And then the current vet, at that time when we decided to go real fast door slammer racing, that was the slipperiest body. Okay, there's a 66, yeah. The 63, the Harry Glass body, was at that time when we were building the car, the most aerodynamic, body that was there. So that's what I wanted. And I mean, if one of the other body styles that was out there was more aerodynamic, I probably would have built that at the time instead of. But I do like the looks of the Harry Glass body.
Yeah, that thing's absolutely gorgeous, and it's kind of, I don't know, I'm a sucker for those. Or I don't want to say vintage looking, but like you look at cars now, especially with like door slant, there's lots of fancy billet wheels out there and all this, and the cars, crazy aero, but those cars are the 90s and early 2000s, like it has center lines on it, like that's what I'm all about. Like those very typical, like what you'd see on our catalog in the 90s or 2000s.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Scott, that was kind of the nice thing about the original Corvette. That was General Motors fiberglass from the firewall back. That was originally built as like a H or G gas car, a real small cubic inch engine with a stick. When we bought it, it had 650 rear end gears.
Deep.
So it had. Yeah, exactly. And so it still had the stock the glass window in the back. It had chrome bumpers, the split bumpers on the back. So it looked like a real vet, and that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Like I said, that thing's absolutely gorgeous, and I don't know, I like looking at cars like that. With a smile on my face.
Scott, what was the engine combination in it? And by the way, did that car have Krager Super Tricks on it? Were those the wheel that you had on there?
They were absolutely.
I love those wheels.
Yeah, the engine combination. It went from anywhere from a dry sump 468 when we first built it to we had a wet sump at the end, a wet sump 532, and that was the fastest engine that we had in the car. But it was always a big block single 4-barrel Dominator. Both Marks, Vega, and myself, we were big block, power lag, and Dana 60 rear end. And so when we traveled, we only, it was easy to carry spares for both cars because they were both realistically driveline identical. We carried a kind of a, not really weak, but a weak spare big block 427 in the truck with us, and a glide and a set of gears in case we ever needed it when we were on the road. We could do the repair at the track instead of quitting and coming home.
Yeah, and that's kind of really genius in the aspect of, especially when you're running two cars, you only, you don't have to carry two of everything because the combinations are so wildly different. And
hey, we like people to. We sell more stuff.
Yes, you should buy two of everything ideally.
Yeah, absolutely. You never know when it's gonna break. You gotta have spares.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
you need one for one for the car, one for the garage, and one for the truck. That's what you need, So.
Absolutely.
exactly.
Scott.
You guys heard it here first. Take Scott's advice and head over to summitracing.com and pick up yourself a set of spares for your spares, guys.
Right. So now that our infomercial's done, hey, Scott, one thing that a lot of folks may or may not realize, and a lot of your students are jumping in here, Scott, with great comments and about how you've been a mentor to them, and just awesome. It's so cool seeing that. And I think it's awesome that you do that with all the kids today. You build your own engines, right? I mean, except for the Top Sportsman deal, just because that's kind of a whole nother world, right? But on your prior to the Top Sportsman car, you always were the one assembling the engines and doing all that, right?
Yeah. It was like one of the things I was interested in, and I kind of, I was always interested in doing the engine part of it. Automatic transmission, forget about it. They go out to somebody who knows what they're doing. But with me, the engines and also setting the rear ends up. When we decided to start racing seriously, I wanted to kind of do as much as I could in house, and so I always did the big block Chevy stuff. I did our engines, and then our Top Sportsman engine was an X-Pro mod engine I bought from Harold Martin, and we bought that from Harold Complete. It was out of his Pro Mod car, but then all the freshenings and stuff that we've done since, I've done as well. The engine's grown a little bit. It was a 697 when we bought it, and it's grown up to be a 736 now. But about 95% of the stuff that we do that way, I do here, and the guys help me. And then on my machine work, I've had another guy that's been with me throughout my career from a little kid, Rick Gorka at Clifton Park Engine Rebuilders. He in Clifton Park, New York. He did all our machine work, and he always made sure that we were on the track on Sunday or whenever we needed to. By chance, the rare occasion that we did have an engine problem, and everybody who does this seriously knows you got to have a great group and a great support team behind, to make sure that your car's back on the track on Sunday if you have trouble or whenever you're racing. And these guys, if we had trouble, made sure that, by Friday night, we had our stuff so that we could put the cars back together and get out to the track Sunday and continue to race, so I had a great support group. And so, but yeah, I try to do as much as I can, right here.
Yeah, that is awesome. And there's certainly, you said 700 and some odd cubic inches. There's certainly replacement. There's no replacement for displacement. That thing is huge. But again, kind of, when you're drag racing, racing is a very small part of a race program. That is kind of that is the highlight of the weekend. There's so much that goes on the week prior and kind of in between races. And it's great to have, a fantastic team that just kind of get you guys where you need to go, and, great people on your team.
Well, that was one of the things, Justin. We had a pretty good routine going, and the guys that our regular guys here, we'd race during the weekend. And on Monday night, it was garage night, and we'd hit, valve covers off the cars, checking the valve lash, making sure everything was ready, going through them immediately in case we had to do something. If we had an unknown repair, and that gave us time to take care of it. We were real thorough with our maintenance program. And like you said, 90% of the work happened in the shop here. And so that when the cars were at the track, they were 100%. We very rarely, between all our cars, very rarely lost races because of a mechanical failure.
That's awesome. That's a good program, Scott. Hey, so back up a little bit. One of the awesome stories between you and Mark that you shared with me a while ago was building engines in the basement of Mama Hamill's house. And, you had these old, like cellar stairs. You had to go down the cellar stairs in order to get the engine down there. And you mentioned your team of guys, and I know you got a bunch of great friends. Obviously, Mark's awesome, great brother and great friend as well. But everybody's hauling stuff down in the basement. You're hauling yourself down in the basement.
Right.
Building up, I think it was a big block Chevy, and then you guys hauled that thing up the basement steps and out. I mean, that's nutty. So tell us about that. I mean, that's just crazy.
Well, where I grew up at my mom's house, we didn't have a garage or anything, and we lived in the country, and so we we had a chain fall out of a big branch in a tree in the yard, and we'd pull engines, in the yard. So that I think was right there. Yeah, that's a picture of us taking the engine and transmission out of my Chevelle. You can see my mom's house in the background,
That's
and
amazing.
yeah. So in the back of the house, you go through the back door, and then there's right immediately her laundry room and staircase. And the guys, yeah, we'd bring them down there, and we didn't do a lot of them. We did that 396. I did it in the basement, and there's a picture. The engine's complete in the basement. You can see the plumbing in the background for the toilet and stuff. Yeah, it was there. That's it right there, and that tunnel ram really didn't belong on it, but we put it on there for the picture. I think you can see that one of the carburetors is on backwards, but this was in the basement of my mom's house, and the only way out of there was no Bilco doors or anything like that. The only way out was up the stairs and out her back door of her house. And I don't even remember how we got that thing out of there, but I would have to take a guess with the guys that I hung around with. Took a lot of plywood on the stairs, and probably a come along at the top of the stairs, dragging that thing up out of the basement. So yeah, at that time we did what we needed to do to get it done. It was, and just like you said, Al, I would jump out of the chair when I was younger. My power to weight ratio, my personal power to weight ratio, was a lot better than it is right now. And I jump out of the chair, and I'd bounce my rear end down the stairs, and whoever was around would bring the chair downstairs. I'd hop in the chair, do the work down there, and then the same thing. They'd bring the chair back upstairs. I'd bump my ass up the stairs, jump back in the chair, and continue on. So yeah. It was, we did a lot of kooky stuff back then. It was kind of cool.
That's awesome. So that carburetor that's on backwards, did Mark put that one on, or who was that one?
No, that here's the story. I love that tunnel ram manifold. That ended up on our Chevelle, but I didn't. When I got that manifold, I bumped into it at a guy's garage. I ended up buying it from him. I didn't even have an engine that it would fit on, but I thought it was so cool, I had to have it. So it's good for the picture and everything. We did end up using it, but those carburetors, we ended up using 750 double pumpers, Hollies on that, but you had to mount them sideways. And, back when that picture was taken, we just set them up there so they would fit and kind of look right.
That's awesome. Typical car person, Scott. You see a part and you go, I have no idea if that's going to work, but I got to buy it because it's cool,
Yes.
So.
That's exactly it. That was the whole mindset with that manifold. I ended up, I didn't buy it. I actually traded a guy a set of gears for it, and it was just, 2 4s. To me, race cars got to have the motor hanging out of the hood, or at least a hood scoop on it,
Heck yeah, absolutely. So Scott, the first time you decided to go to the racetrack, how was it? Was it like a Friday night tuning test? Did you decide to go Saturday for bracket night, or what was it? And let me ask you, how did Mama Hamill react to that? Was she kind of the raised eyebrow, like, you sure you want to do that?
Yeah, no, I got to tell you, my mom, I was lucky enough to be born to the coolest mom in the world, and so when we were kids, Mama's mom raising three boys, we didn't have any money, and she drove junk around all the time. And so she ended up getting a 1971 Olds Cutlass, easily the 2-door, easily the nicest car that she had ever owned. And so after I got hurt, things kind of went together. The car was a 2-door, which I needed to jump in and out of the car and pull my wheelchair in behind the driver's seat. And also it was an automatic, so we put hand controls in it. Buddy of mine had a beautiful, Kevin Groff had a beautiful 1967 390 Mustang GT. Gorgeous car, the 3 2-barrel combination, the whole thing. And so he was going to take it to the drags to just see how fast it was. Well, I, of course, decided to go up there and kind of hang out with him and watch him. And I was 18, and at the last minute, I had decided to enter the car in whatever class I could get into at the track. And so back then, all the NHRA stock classes, M stock, L stock, whatever, they had NHRA trophy classes at the track. So her Oldsmobile fit in the M stock automatic trophy class. So that's the class, and it was a heads up class. It wasn't bracket racing. We just ran M stock automatic all together. And I ended up winning the class the first day, which was really kind of cool. Not that I did well driving, but her car just happened to be about a half second quicker than everything else that was there that day. So, I got the trophy first day, brought it home. And, she just thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and like I said, she was really, really neat. And coincidentally, decades later, in 2012, Lebanon Valley Dragway, we had been up there forever. Lebanon Valley Dragway decided to make her the Dragway Person of the Year at their points banquet, and I still had that first trophy that I won with her car. I've got them all still. And so anyways, we presented her with not only the plaque that the track had gave to her, but we still had that first trophy that we won with her car. So she's got that over to the house now too, so
That's awesome.
She was, yeah, mama was our kind of at the track. She was always there. She made crew lunch all the time, brought sandwiches for everybody. And she sat around in the lawn and made sure everybody was doing what they were supposed to do and everybody was safe, to the point where sometimes if the track got a little iffy, she'd get nervous about us and she'd go up in the tower and yell at the track manager and make sure her boys were going to be okay.
That's awesome. Mama Hamill legend, That's outstanding.
That's fantastic. And you just gotta love that. What a wholesome story. And I'm sure she appreciated getting that trophy back.
Well, Justin, we did it as a family. I started the whole thing, but when I first started drag racing, my Chevelle, Mark and one of his friends, Jeff Gibbs, were 11 years old, and they were my crew. We'd go to the drag strip, and those guys would jack the car up, put the slicks on it with headers and header mufflers, take the mufflers off for me, so I didn't have to jump down there and do all that stuff. And, it was me and 2 11 years olds as a crew, and, so that was the deal, and these guys that they were, for as young as they were dynamite, and so that's where I started with these guys. And we did it every week, going up there and, just racing for trophies,
That is absolutely fantastic. I love that.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So how did the track officials react when you started going faster and faster? And I remember you told me a funny story about going through tech with the top Sportsman car, but even before that, can you tell us about any challenges you had or had to persuade them a little bit and say, hey,
I was
fine.
Yeah. I actually think, Al, that the very first day I went there, when I got hurt, it was 77. The first time I went to the track was 1979. I'm kind of an old dude now. So I pulled in, to tech with Mom's Oldsmobile, but of course, I didn't hop out of the car, and so the tech official, the guy's name was Paul Roberts, and he was a tech official at Lebanon Valley forever. And he came up to the car, and when he asked me to get out and pop the hood on the car so he could check the battery hole down and under the hood of the car, and I told him, I said, listen, I'm a wheelchair and I'm driving it with hand controls, so he popped the hood and he looked the car over and he came back over and he looked at me. And the only question he asked me, the car wasn't fast. It was a 17-second car. And he said, can you handle the car okay? And I said, yeah, sir, I can. And so he goes, okay, gave me the tech slip, and he said, have a good day. So over the course of time, I raced at Lebanon Valley on a regular basis. I think nobody ever really put the screws to me as far as trying to prove everything, but I think they watched me from the outside looking in, to make sure I looked okay. I think if there was ever a question, they probably, if I needed to prove myself as far as getting in and out of the car or do anything, but I think a lot of people watched me because I was a little bit different. I wasn't, I was the guy running around in the chair race instead of, like the rest of the guys. And so as time went on, the cars got faster and faster. And, I was continuing to operate the car safely. And then when the Corvette went into the 9s, I had to get an NHRA license. And I did the regular NHRA driving, tests, the 6 runs I had to make. We performed fine, safely. The 2 drivers, had to sign off on the license, the track manager. And so then, I think because I had done it for so long and we slowly stepped up in performance, nobody really, I don't know, they just, I was like one of the other guys. I really didn't have to, I guess, prove anything. One of the other things I will say, though, is that we always race safe, and I would never put myself in a situation where I would put myself in jeopardy of being hurt in a car, even in a fast car. When we started running Top Sportsman, when I first built that car, we ran heads up stuff at first. Like low, and that's what I really built for. So I got my SDTs. Yep, there I am. I got my advanced DT license, which would let me drive a car down to 6 seconds flat. And before every season, I would jump in the car with all my safety stuff on in the garage, and I would practice getting out of the car as fast as I could with the fire suit on, the helmet, the Hans, and everything. And I always kind of made a promise to myself that I would never put myself in a situation that I could get hurt in the car. Other than the obvious risks that go along with it.
Yeah, and practicing, that's like something I guess like a lot of people don't think about, but that's something we should kind of all be doing, is practicing getting out of your car safely once you're geared up,
right,
and all that, because unfortunately, you never know when something is going to go wrong, and not knowing what to do in the situation, I think, can be a little bit scary. So by practicing like that, you're kind of preparing yourself for the worst, but it's one of those things you just kind of keep in your back pocket. Now, I do think it's very funny. We're having a ton of people show up, comment, saying hi, but we actually have your brother Mark here in the comments. Allegedly, he was a better racer.
Yeah, we'll let you straighten him out outside of this, Scott. But you guys raced together. I mean, for how many years? And you were Lebanon Valley was your home track. But you guys went to a lot of tracks around the East Coast, right?
Yeah, and Mark was a better racer because I tested all the questionable stuff with him before we put it in his car. That's all it was to. But no, we did. Back, when we were bracket racing, a $5,000 bracket race was a big deal, and it wasn't like the mega bracket races that there was now. And so we used to chase those $5,000 bracket races, and pretty much any track in the Northeast, if they had a $5,000 race, we'd hop in the truck and we'd go. Mark did very well. He had 8 track championships at the track. He started racing when he was 15. We used to sneak him in. We'd drive right to the end, right before we got to the track, and then I'd put him in the driver's seat and have him drive the whole mess, into the staging lanes. So I think that they kind of figured that if he was driving the whole mess into the staging lanes or into the tech area to come in, nobody ever checked his driver's license. So he started when he was 15. And we raced for, I'm not sure when he quit. I quit at the Valley in 98 and started. So a good solid 20 years, up there in different classes. Together, and the last probably 10 of those we raced in the same class in Super, so that was kind of cool. We were always, Mark was it, because at the beginning of his racing career, he raced cars. My old Chevelle was very inconsistent, so it kind of taught him to be a very good top end racer. Usually, I'm not saying we didn't sandbag, but there was a lot of opportunities where Mark would get to the finish line. He had to decide what to do because he didn't know where the car was, and it made him a very, very good top end racer. And so that combined with his reaction times, when we put him in a really, really good car, he was exceptional.
Yeah, and there's kind of a lot of, now I've only done little bit of bracket racing in my life, mostly at the, they do that Hangover National out there at 42.
January. Yeah.
Where you have to run the year. So like it'll be 20, you have to run essentially as close as you can to a 2024 or 2023, depending on the year. That is all of my bracket racing experience. But, there's a lot of, I don't think a lot of people, there's a ton of skill to it. Not only being consistent, but, seeing what you got to do at the back end of the track, whether you're dumping somebody or kind of figuring all that out.
Yeah, you got to know your car, and like I said, when Mark started racing, he ran a street car for the first year, but then right away, this second year that he was racing, I don't know, he's 16 or 17 years old. I put him in a 11-second Chevelle with a trans brake that really wasn't very consistent, and he learned to be a good driver quickly. So just one of those things. And again, did it as a family, and it was a big group thing. It kept our family. Not that it kept us together, but man, we shared a lot of it. Through drag racing.
That's awesome. Scott, did you ever have an incident in any of your cars where off track, anything? Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. Tell us about that and what happened and how everybody kind of dealt with it.
Yeah, you're talking about putting the car on the roof? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Well, yeah. So when we decided, we had the 8-second, the Corvette, that S&W car, that thing would drive itself. I mean, it was a dynamite car. And when we decided to go real fast, to go to the top Sportsman Pro Mod type car, there was a very steep learning curve. Didn't really know what we were doing. We were working with a lot more power than we were used to. And so I had two incidents. One, the car had and we made a mistake. It was a mistake on my part. We built the car without power brakes, and with hand controls, you got to have power brakes in the car. And I built the car without power brakes, thinking that I had 2 parachutes on the car. Everything's going to be cool, and it was an asinine move on my part. And so we were testing. We were running a series here in the Northeast. It was called the Super Slammer series, and it was a low buck pro mod series. And we were testing for a race the following day at Lebanon Valley on a Friday. My hand controls in the car were removable, and we used a pneumatic parachute release with a button on the hand controls. So there was an electrical connection between the hand controls that plugged into the dashboard, and the car shook on the run, and it shook the electrical connection loose on the car. And I ended up no chutes, no power brakes, running off the end of the track at the valley and tweaking it pretty good. It was a pretty good crash. At Lebanon Valley, they had the pea gravel pit, but then also there was a town road that goes across the end of the track. And if you didn't stop there, the Howie commander, they had a big dirt pile at the end that would keep you from going out in the town road. And I hit that dirt pile at speed, and it was a pretty good crash. But the one you're talking about, Al, after we got the car back together, again, testing, it was we were again running that Super Slammer series. We weren't testing, it was a qualifying pass. And got to the finish line, and the hood scoop peeled off the car. And when the scoop came off, it damaged the throttle linkage and hung the throttle linkage open on it. So that parachute circuit that I talked about was on a switch along with all the rest of the switches on my panel. When the throttle hung open, it was like a kind of a pucker moment. It was like, wow, this thing's hauling ass. And the valley at that time it's not the longest track in the world, So I just reached up and I swatted all the switches to get the motor off. Well, in doing that, I also switched the parachutes off. And so I went to hit the chutes, no chutes too. So now I'm about, car was close to 200 at the finish line. And with the throttle open, I get the thing shut off, but I shut the chutes off as well. I got a guy next to me in the other lane. And in my haste to get the thing stopped, I got it bouncing around on the slicks and chasing it with the steering wheel back and forth until I finally did lose it. It was going over as I got into the wall, and put her over on the roof, and when it when it hit the wall, it did shake one of the chutes out, luckily, and I ended up sliding down the track upside down, on the roof, luckily going straight. And so the thing with that deal was that show was part of an NHRA division race, and so I'm upside down, and I'm in the car like out of the seatbelts. And the first thing, this guy, he was an EMT at the time. He became Division I director, Dave Moan. He was the EMT, and he came right in the car. He was like right after the car stopped in the passenger door, and he goes, "Yeah, okay." Well, me being a jackass, making a joke, I said, "Yeah, I'm okay, but I can't feel my legs." Well, okay, he didn't know. Right, okay. So they freak. They think I'm hurt in the car. All right, but I wasn't. It was just me, And then immediately when I saw his reaction, I'm like, no. And I didn't know Dave. And I said, no, really, I'm okay. I'm a paraplegic. I drive with hand controls, just, tell my wife and my mom I'm okay. And, go get my wheelchair, that kind of stuff, But when I said that, it was not the opportune time to say that. And Dave became Division I director, and years later, he never let me forget that, and because it scared the hell out of him. They thought I was hurt. So I'm hanging in the car upside down, and of course, the first thing you're worried about is fire. But I didn't want to drop myself on my head. I didn't want to pull the belts and drop myself on my head. So luckily, there was no fire or a risk of fire, luckily, and I stayed in the car. The guys flipped me back over on the wheels, and then I hopped out. By that time they brought the chair down. My crew was down there and stuff, but it was an ugly moment. I think it scared the hell out of everybody. Scared the crew, scared the track, I just it's the scariest part was the open throttle, and then after chasing the car. I was so busy driving the car, I never got a chance to be scared. I do remember though going over and yelling the F word loud because I was mad about it, and then closing my eyes. And then when I when I opened my eyes, I was upside down sliding down the track. So, and that was a financial hit. I almost quit racing after that.
Yeah, especially with like an at speed crash like that. But crashes like that when when lots of things on the car get messed up is not ideal, and it can be quite the big investment to fix the car after that.
Yeah, that whole crash was just a series of, I guess you would say, unforeseen circumstances that added up. The throttle hanging up, me turning the chutes off, the whole thing. And so that was it. But that crash turned out to be kind of a blessing in disguise, because after that, when we decided to regroup, I took the car, what was left of it, to Mark Markow up in Connecticut, and Markow built me a double frame rail Pro Mod chassis. And then after that, the car was a rocket. It was beautiful. It was a pleasure to drive. And Mark actually, he turned my racing program around, because we went from heroes at Lebanon Valley, track champions, to zeros immediately when we started to try to go fast. And we didn't look good for a couple of years before we finally got our stuff together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Scott, when you were running Top Sportsman, I think that, some of our customers and viewers, some of them completely understand the expense of that, the maintenance of that. Tell us about, after a race, what all did you have to do to the car? How often, are you putting slicks on it a couple times a year? I mean, how much of the maintenance expense, and with all the guys that you had helping you with the car, what does that look like, race to race? How much work is it?
Well, when we were, doing the divisional racing here in Division I, usually in the summertime, season would start, and we'd start testing in April, and then the season would start usually beginning of May, end of April, beginning of May, and then go into September. And then after the Top Sportsman season was open, we'd usually go to a couple. Usually, Atco Dragway had a couple of outlaw. We used to call it Outlaws at ATCO. They did programs at the end of the year. They ran once a month. They had fast door slammer racing, and we would do that. General maintenance on the engine was we didn't spray it hard. I ran one stage of nitrous. We usually sprayed it with around 300 to go 680s, and the engine, of course, was an X-Pro modified engine, so it was built to take, Harold, I believe, used to spray it with three systems, and lean on a lot harder than we used to. So, the big maintenance on the car, just looking it over, the combination of that car was the 736. It was a Rodec electronic fuel injection nitrous motor. And then we had a Lenco with a quicker drive in it. So it was a Lenco transmission with a converter in front of it back to the 9-inch Ford. It was all pretty heavy duty stuff. So basic maintenance on the thing was leaking it down, checking the valve springs, replace them as necessary. And then the engine would have to be freshened every 60 runs. And of course, every winter, everything came apart and we inspected everything, rear end came apart, the Lenco, came apart, checked the clutches and the discs in that. And you always send the converter out to be refreshened and things like that. We're pretty lucky. Once we got the program kind of pointed in the right direction, all our stuff was good stuff, and depending on the weekend, sometimes we didn't put very many passes on the car. Sometimes we had good weekends, but if you went and you did crappy at the races, it'd be maybe 3 qualifying sessions and have a good day first round and put it back in the trailer. Other weekends, they were good. They were good weekends, and we didn't race a lot of races because we couldn't afford to. It was a lot of the travel time and things like that. But we probably run, 7 to 10 races a year with the car. Yeah.
Okay. So Scott, when you were on that run, the 679-203, you left, you're going down the track. Were you thinking, man, this thing feels really, really good? Did you have any idea how quick that run was when you got to the end of the track?
It was a nice, smooth pass. That happened at the shakedown at E-Town, that big slammer race down there in 2011, I think, 2011. And, one of the goals that when we built the car, I kind of wanted to go into six. I wanted to go into the sixes at over 200. And matter of fact, that's the pass right there. And we had, I had talked to my converter guys at Cone. I had gone a 703 with the car already, but only at 196. And, we decided we wanted to try a new converter combination, and they sent me a new converter, and we did a couple other things to the car. Mark and I talked it over. We knew that the track, down at that race would be dynamite. So we decided to, load it up and go down there. And they didn't run at that event. They didn't run Top Sportsman. So we entered Pro Nitrous, and they qualified the top 16 cars. We didn't even really think that we would have a chance to qualify. But we just went down there with the intent of try to run in the sixes. And so we went down there and entered Pro Nitrous and ended up, going the 79 at a 203, and actually qualified for the show at 15th, out of 16 cars. And we were thrilled that we even qualified. First round, we had to run the number 2 qualifier, and they put us on the trailer. But it was a great weekend for us. We ran in the sixes at over 200 for the first time, qualified for the show. Not only that, gained a little bit of attention for ourselves. Van Abernathy from Drag Illustrated, they were there covering the race, and they ended up doing a big feature on us, for the magazine and stuff. And that was really, really cool. I thought that was neat, So, but that particular pass, Al, no, it was smooth as silk. The ones that are fast, the car doesn't do anything. It's just down the track it goes. The ones that feel fast, the ones where you're driving it and steering it, those are the slow ones. The real fast passes are the ones that are just, doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, you got to love it when it all comes together like that. And it's just kind of like that perfect, Yeah.
Right down Main Street. A to
Yeah,
B.
perfect recipe for everything. So like when me and my buddies play basketball, I always run at the hoop like I'm gonna slam dunk it. And then one day the moon's gonna be a little bit closer. I'm gonna get a little higher off the ground and it's going.
Yeah.
Now that I want video with a picture of, Justin. I gotta see that.
Well, that was one of the things, I knew it was a good pass, but I got to the end of the track and the guys came down, told me it went to 679. I was like, wow. I was hoping 699. If we had 699.9, that was good. That was good. But we bumped into the sixes pretty good that day, and so yeah, that was pretty cool. I enjoyed it a lot, and got a little notoriety from it, and yeah, it was good. And that just one of the highlights of a long career doing this stuff. Was cool. That was after the pass. Nobody can see it, but that's
a smile on your face.
He's got the Top Gun glasses going on there and everything, man. Looking good.
Hey, those are prescription. I can't see shit without them. So
Nice.
But what
So
kind
Scott,
of
would that have
coincidental?
been like, when you think of all the races and all the things you've done with the car, is that one that sticks out as like greatest day ever, or was there another race that? And maybe it's like both of them are a parallel to you.
Just trying to be successful when we at whatever you were doing at that time. When I was running Top Sportsman, one of our I think proudest moments, we were at the divisional race at Atco Dragway, and they awarded us best engineered car, which I thought was really, really cool. I was very proud of that. And then coincidentally at that race, went to the final, and lost the final by thousands. So we had a great weekend that weekend, that race was also one of the highlights. Lebanon Valley, the local racing here, my first win, in Super with the old Corvette, that was cool. And of course, Mom, with the first trophy with Mom's car, who would have ever thought that? That kind of set the hook, for the whole rest of the years to come. And so there were a lot of moments. Watching Mark be successful, that was very, very satisfying to me. We ran both the cars here out of this garage as a team. And watching Mark, dominate the tracks there, dominate the track there was very, very, gave me a lot of satisfaction, that we put a team out there like that, and that I was lucky enough to, be able to, have Mark driving the car and having him, and when we were at our peak. We could go pretty much any track in the Northeast. And when we rolled through the gates, they knew who we were, bracket racing, and so that was kind of cool, whether we went to New England or we went down to US 13 down to Delaware or, wherever we went, they knew who we were, and that was kind of neat, and just to be, respected by the peers that you race with, that was very satisfying as well.
Yeah, it's kind of always a satisfying feeling when you're either the new guy or kind of that deal, and you've made your statement, you've had a little success, and you kind of just get to, okay, I'm one of these guys now. Like, obviously, this wasn't just luck. I've won once, more than once or twice or three times. Like, I'm here for a while, and I'm making a little bit of a statement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's one of the things, especially like me being in the chair, getting to the point where, your fellow competitors don't consider you the guy in the chair. You're just another guy. You're just another race car driver, and I think that was, I think, something that made me happy is that, nobody looked at me as the guy in the wheelchair racing. It was just Scott racing, and that was cool. I thought it was neat,
Yeah,
so
awesome.
That is cool.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Scott, now you're retired from drag racing. You're working at the vocational school, which is awesome. And again, a bunch of your students, you'll have to read all the comments after this because there's all kinds of fun stuff the kids are throwing in there about. Let's see, Butter Inspector put in, we couldn't swear in class, but Hamill can swear in a live YouTube interview. So I don't know this kid, and I already like him because he's totally funny. But a little bit of light here or there, Scott. We were having a conversation, so we understand that. But funny comment from one of your students, and obviously they think highly of you. Tell us about a day at the school. Which of these kids you got to get in line. Which one of them are really good listeners, and maybe we'll send you a little bit of Summit swag to keep these guys in line. Although you probably got your hands full doing that anyway, right?
Well, one of the things, Al, I'm going to stop you for a second. Just thank Summit for your support for our program over the years, because you guys have treated us extremely well. So I just want to put that there right now. How many you got to get them in line? All of them, So they know, they're teenage kids, I mean, we used to be one too, we know what we're all about. They look at us, myself, Scott Tesher, Brian LaCroix, the teachers I work with, I think sometimes the kids forget that we used to be them, and so typical day, just go in there, take attendance, make sure everybody's there, make sure everybody's pointed in the right direction, and make sure everybody's safe at the school. And we try to do the best. Our kids are good. We have a really, really high end program, and we're the I'll pat ourselves on the back. Our program, we're the best of the best, and so we put out a really, really good product. The kids are when they leave, we can place 100% in a job if they want. The need for technicians out there right now is, as we all know, extreme. I've been doing it 22 years now, and I'm to the point now where I could retire if I wanted to. And so far, I joke with the kids. I say I don't hate them enough yet, and the worst part of the morning is when the alarm goes off. After a couple of cups of coffee and you're there, it's 99%. 99% of the days are good days, and we see a lot of our kids that sometimes when they come in, we don't, they're questionable as whether they're going to be moving in the right direction. And a lot of these kids that we turn them around, and we point them in the right direction. Because a lot of the kids that we have, as I didn't like high school. I did not like high school. And the only thing that kept me in high school was the automotive program that I went to, the BOCES class that I went to, the BOTEC. And that kept me in high school. And I know that some of the kids that we have now are in that situation as well. And they come in when they first come in, and you guys who are there are listening, and they come in, and some of them, they want to test you, and see where they can go with you. But what happens is, and once the majority of the students see that you're looking out for them and you want them to be successful, and you're going to do as much as you can to help them along and give them a career, then all of a sudden things change. It becomes it begins as a teacher student relationship, and by the time you're done, it's more like just a mutual respect between ourselves and the kids, and because there's a lot of responsibility when you're working on my car, making sure that the wheels are on tight, making sure nothing falls off, and making sure that when the car goes out of the shop, it's safe for the customer to drive down the road and go pick their kids up. And we try to instill that in them as much as possible, the professionalism, and responsibility of what they're undertaking.
Yeah, and you can't beat a good vocational program. I'm a what's the word I'm looking for? I went through a vocational program in school, and that was kind of like you said. That was I hated regular high school. Sitting in a classroom wasn't for me. And a vocational program was kind of that shining light to be like, this is what I maybe want to do with the rest of my life, and kind of gives you that taste and allows you to decide if you want to further your education in that field or find something else. And I don't know, I'm thankful every day that I kind of got that spark from my teacher, and now I get to do cool stuff like this and talk to fine folks like yourself.
Yeah, Scott, I think
Well,
everybody at some point in their life knows a teacher, had a teacher. I mean, I had my high school geometry teacher totally put me on the right trajectory because, when it came to some of the other classes, if it was a science or math thing, I was really into it. But aside from that, I was kind of disinterested too. And Mr. Volk is the one who put me on the right path. So I'm sure a lot of these kids chiming in, a lot of them making comments, and kids you've had over the years, they're going to look back someday and be like, man, Mr. Hamill really pointed me in the right direction. And it's awesome you're doing that. And I can't tell you, I'm appreciative of it because I think everybody at some point in their life gets somebody to point them in the right direction, and then they go, it's really cool to see you doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Al. It's myself, but also the guys that I work with, like I said, Scott Tesher, Brian LaCroix, the teachers I work with. The guys they are exceptional technicians and exceptional teachers, and the kids are lucky that that they have them, as instructors. So I don't know, and it just like you said, same thing. Mr. Sherman, my teacher, my auto teacher in high school, exactly the same thing. The guy, had for me. So I hope that I can have the same, and we can have the same effects on some of the kids that we have. So
yeah. So, Scott, do you ever think you're going to get back in the seat? You're going to get the car back out and you're going to get after it again, or you permanent break? What do you think?
I'm done, Al. The time, and I thought I did race in 2018, but I looked back at my records and I actually retired at the end of 17. And but no, I'm done. Truck and trailer are gone. I sold those. I still have the car, and actually right now our new shop, we have a 2,000 horse chassis dyno at the shop. And so I'm slowly putting the engine back together for the car because I'd like to bring the car in and run it on the chassis dyno for the kids. A lot of the kids haven't seen a car like mine. And, to spin that thing up on the chassis dyno would be pretty cool. So the engine's mostly together. I've got one of my heads out of Brodix right now, getting welded up. And when that head comes back, I'll put it get running. And, I'm sure sooner or later it's going to find its way on our dyno up to the shop, and when we run that thing on the dyno, that's going to be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to it. But yes, I'm all done. I'm happy. I've been yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, everybody loves a good display of raw horsepower, especially in something like that.
Yeah. Scott, you ought to do an over-under and let the kids guess what it'll make, and then throw some swag at them or something. That'd be a fun contest. And they send some video to us when you do it. We'll throw it out on the channel and see what people think.
All right, yeah. They, I don't know if I want them to know the numbers. It might be a lot weaker than I think it is. So
that's what you just got to give them the old. You got to look at the kids and be like, back in my day, this used to jump Coke cans, and you couldn't grab $20 bills off the dash.
Well, it is. Everybody's watching Street Outlaws now. These guys are making 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 horsepower. And we'd be on the chassis dyno running naturally aspirated. I'd be happy if it made 1,000 to rear wheels. There's a lot these days, as you guys know, with the parts that you guys sell and the engines that you guys sell and the stuff that's out there technology wise, man, you can buy big power now, and I don't know. Mine's good, but it's not.
That's kind of always a crazy conversation that we have is, 20 years ago, a 10-second car
was a bullet.
That was fast. Like if you had a 10-second street car, that was something really impressive. Now 8-second street cars are quick.
Oh yeah. People are doing drag week in 6-second cars. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Scott, thanks for joining us today, man. We cannot thank you enough. Glad we got to get together. Glad we got to catch up. Hey, I do want to share one last story about you that's kind of funny. I started at Summit about 15 years ago, and throughout our building, we've got different pictures of race cars people have sent in, magazine covers, different things, all kinds of interesting car stuff as you walk through the building. And one day a few years ago, I remember sending you and Mark a picture of this. I'm like, hey, who's this guy? you've bought parts from us for a long, long time. And this letter was from way before I ever worked at Summit. One of our salespeople went, I guess, above and beyond to take care of you and get you some parts so you guys could go race on a weekend. And you sent an awesome letter in, picture of the race car, hey, Summit team, just want to say thanks for helping us out. And that is still in our main hallway on our first floor as folks come through the building. So anyway, I just want to share that because to me, it's just an indicator of who you are, Scott. You buy parts from us, you pay us for that. We're not doing you a favor, but you sending that letter in, just thanking us and letting our salesperson know that was awesome. And that's just the kind of person you are. And you've been that way the whole time I've known you, which is just really, really cool. So
Al, you're not blowing any air up your skirt here or anything like that. Your service has been exceptional. From when we were building regular, when I was just doing streetcar stuff, right to the real fast door slammer stuff. Your guys, your salesmen on the phone have been exceptional. They've gone above and beyond. When we first started real quick example, when we first started putting the whole program together for the Pro Mod car, and I had ordered a set of bed rails for our new dually, stainless steel diamond plate bed rails, and we didn't have time to even unbox them when we got here, when the stuff got here, and it ended up down in our basement for a year. And when we finally did unbox them, they were damaged. And I'm like, damn, but it was a phone call. And I said, it's worth a phone call. So I called. I just talked to one of your regular guys. And, he looked up the purchase and he looked and saw that we were, a customer that had been with you for a number of years. And they said, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. And your guys, Summit sent me another set of those bed rails. No questions asked. It was over a year. It was our mistake. We never, they were damaged in shipping. And right from that to, we purchased things you guys didn't have in stock. And I'm going to use the dry sump tank for Moroso dry sump tank from Moroso. I'd call your guys. They'd find, you didn't, of course, have it in stock, but Moroso did. We'd purchase it through you, and Moroso would drop ship it here for me, and it's just stuff like that I mean, that's all there is to it. It's been dynamite, always have been, and I don't know, what else can you say? Customer service, outstanding, above and beyond, and sometimes you call place, you get attitude, and I never got that from you guys. They were always right there for me. It was cool. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Scott. Really appreciate it. Summit fans, thank you again for joining us today. Scott, always great seeing you. Great catching up with you. Your story's amazing. Keep teaching the kids. Keep them in line. And customers, Facebook fans, thank you so much for joining us today. Scott, great seeing you. We'll see you soon.
Al, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Take care.